All right, it's going live, going live. Guess it's live. It's Monday, March 1st, 2021. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are talking about cryptocurrencies and why they are terrible. So you might recall on a previous Geek Nights at some point, time just doesn't exist anymore for me, but I talked about how I had to replace the fans in my computer because the computer's like from 2016 and
the new fans came in the mail.
The new fans came and
you put them in and they're great.
I put them in and they're great. God damn it. That's the whole opening bit. But what I can say is that one of the fans was smaller than the fan that could have gone there. The case actually came with a 120 millimeter fan in the back top. No, so the case can fit a 140 back there.
Oh, okay.
But the one that came stock in this NZXT case was a 120, but the slot can take either. So I put 140s everywhere because why not? And I did a test.
Why not?
The fact that the top fan had not been pulling its fair share of air previously was significantly impacting the performance of the GPU.
Why did they not, if NZXT knows this, why didn't they put...
Well, this is a case from 2016. They don't even make this case anymore.
They don't?
Their cases are way better now in terms of airflow.
Well, except for that one that's...
The one that's top fire. The one that is a literal danger to your house. The one that I was thinking about buying from HTPC.
Well, not anymore.
But
you can buy the recalled one; it'll be just fine.
Yeah, but basically,
if people don't know, NZXT, who is a great maker of computer cases, they're really pretty good. I would buy them if I was gonna buy, even despite the recall, I would still buy one.
Yep. Because the recall only affected. I guess we could have done this as news, but we didn't. The recall only affected. If you use one of those stupid risers to mount your video card vertically into the side, which I don't recommend you do.
I do that in my HTPC that lies flat, but otherwise.
Yeah, don't do that in if you're doing a mid tower, that's pretty much just going to be a worse cooling solution for you. It also introduces risk of problems independent of start a fire.
But yeah, only one NZXT case has a fire hazard and got a recall, but everything else is fine.
Yep. But it was interesting that, the fake case fan in the back had been busted for some time. Like once I realized it wasn't really spinning much. And what was happening is when I'd play games, the inside of the case would get hotter and hotter because the airflow wasn't great. The puller fans on the front were effectively also pushing out that hole in the top. I only had one puller fan equalizing. Now that everything's fully equalized with all these fans and everything reconfigured, the inside of the case stays pretty cool. The GPU stays around 50 when I'm playing Overwatch in max settings. But when with the old fan, it was hovering around 56.
Whatever.
That's the most I can milk out of that.
The only thing I can say is we did an episode on computer maintenance way back, at least a while back, and I've been doing more using my Google Tasks. I guess whatever task managing thing you might to-do list kind of thing you use in your life.
I use Google Keep.
Sure. I use Google Tasks, and I've been putting more recurring tasks, and one of the ones that I have is clean out filters on CPU fans to remove all the dust. So I've been doing that every few months and a month or two, and that's good, I guess.
Yeah.
And all my fans are working because I don't hear any noises down there. So.
Yep. Fans have gotten better too because the old fans I had plugged in the 3-pin like they were standard. The new fans I got are all 4-pin, so my software can control them better.
I mean, yeah, I think all mine are that way.
Yeah, but that's just this computer that feels like it's brand new. I built it in 2016, and that was a long time ago.
Not that long ago. All right.
Yeah. So in the news, there's a ton of tech news, but it's not quite time for the tech news roundup.
Rim's getting excited.
I'm getting excited. It's my favorite.
You don't want to use all your news. You won't have any when your time comes. You'll blow for a whole year, right? You'll do you'll have just a really crappy news for a tech news roundup. It'll be a shitty one, and then you won't be able to do another one for a whole year.
I still think someday the future of Geek Nights, the Monday show is going to turn into just tech news roundup.
That's all you want it to be. But I think you should just hold off on this tech news roundup for 2021 until you build up enough good news.
But it's always there. I got so much tech news every time we do a tech show that I'm holding back always.
Make sure. You're just
tech news roundup is like Christmas for me.
Don't waste one.
Well, especially because traditionally, the Tech News Roundup happens just as convention season is ending, and we're going into our like lull before convention season starts up again. Of course, that didn't happen this year. So in the news, if you're not familiar, there are many social media platforms out there, and one of them, quite literally the worst of them, is called Gab.
Close to the worst of them.
I mean,
There are several. There's still the Parler one, right?
Parler is not as bad as Gab, sadly.
Really?
Like if you're ranking Nazis, like they're all bad, but the Nazi who's like,
I didn't think that any of them were better than any of the others. I thought they were just all equally Nazi.
So if I had to describe the differences, Parler is people who got kicked off Twitter, and Gab is people who are openly pedophiles and open like Reich Nazis. Like if Hitler were still alive, his account would be on Gab because even Parler would have kicked him off.
You sure? Really?
Gab is so much worse than Parler. You have no idea. Gab is where
I haven't looked at either one, so
I'm trusting the reporting of people who follow like fascist groups. Gab is
that those are the names of fascist social websites.
Yep.
That Gab is Reddit style and Parler is Twitter style. That's all I know. I don't know anything else.
The thing that far-right extremist social networks have in common is that they rarely have good IT or technology, because most people who are good enough at technology to do a platform like that right aren't actually fascists. They might work for a company that does things that enable the sort of neoliberal dystopian hellscape that we live in, but they're not like down with the Reich. So it's
those places, even if someone had no morals and high skills of IT, those places that are on the far right don't have a lot of money.
That is also true.
If you have no morals, you're just a mercenary. You're in capitalist society. You're gonna work for the Goog, right? the Facebooks or whatever. Right? You're not gonna work for the Gabs. They can't pay you.
Yep. So Gab, Parler, I think got hacked a while ago. Gab, like, just recently got mega hacked, and it appears that someone downloaded their entire database. Every post, every private message, completely in the clear, ready for anyone to read. They got, for all their groups, they got raw, unencrypted passwords. They got the hashed passwords for the actual accounts themselves. The only thing we don't know, there is rumblings that those hash passwords don't even appear to be salted, but no one's sure yet. Like, I'm still waiting for confirmation.
And with the rainbow table, see what comes out.
Exactly. Rainbow tables. So, yeah, if you are a piece of shit and you have an account on Gab, everyone can read every awful thing you posted. Pretty sure it's mostly child porn and planning the riot and the attack on the Capitol.
Okay. Now, if it's child porn, how come the FBI hasn't done anything about that? They loved going after child porn.
I imagine they will be doing something about this leak.
Okay.
I think a lot of people are in a lot of trouble around child porn because of this.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, no good person has an account on Gab. Whoever did this hack, which apparently was done via a...
Hold on. The person who committed this hack
is a hero.
Had to make a Gab account in order to figure stuff out.
So, yes, someone may have a research Gab account. If you have an earnest Gab account, you're definitely a bad person. That's a good clarification. But the vulnerability that was used by the person who hacked it, who is known as Jax Perot and My Little Anonymous Revival Project, got all the data via a simplistic SQL injection attack.
That makes sense. But you database dump, you're probably going to get it via injection. Right?
Yep. And shitty social networks like this tend to have just one giant database that runs everything.
I mean, yeah, you're not that big. You need to have some, like multi-stage, multi-region kind of partition database setup,
So keep the hacktivism up. Like, go after these right-wing platforms because they are usually really soft targets.
Oh, yeah.
In some other news, Fry's, which I've never been to a Fry's. Never seen a Fry's in person?
If I've been to one, I don't remember it, but I assume that they're just the same thing as a Best Buy or what a Circus City used to be, or
Pretty much. Like I'll be honest, I never understood. People being obsessed with Fry's really reeked of people just like caring a lot about their local non-Wegmans grocery store.
Right. It's like there are certain stores that really are, us in the same category as other stores, but do something special and different to like level them up. Right. So, for example, you have furniture store, but then IKEA is like it's got something going on that's significantly different, right? Where you have the, it's the layout of the place and the way you shop there and the thing at the end, right? And then you got your supermarkets, but then you got your Wegmans. Wegmans is still just a supermarket. It's just so big and has so much good stuff, right? And, but then you got your TJ, which is also different. It's smaller, but they've got special stuff. It's all TJ stuff, right? And then you got your Stu Leonard's, which is in that IKEA zone of like, is this even a grocery store?
Is it an amusement park?
Right. What the hell is this? Is it an actual cow here? Where did this milk come from? Right.
I remember you talked for as long as you knew. She was like, oh, Stu Leonard's, the Stu Leonard's. Then we finally went, and I was like, all right, this place is weirder than I expected. Like this, like
it's something.
it's something. All right.
People who live in the Northeast U.S. could possibly know about Stu Leonard's, and let me tell you, it's really something good. But I never. If I have been to Fry's, it's only been once. I don't remember it, but I can't imagine you can do something with that sort of store to really make it that special Wegmans or IKEA level different experience than what you get out of a Best Buy. So I never believed anyone who was like so high on fries. They remind me of the people who are really high on what are those burgers from out west?
Oh, In-N-Out or
yeah, it's like I can't imagine In-N-Out is like actually any big freaking deal compared to like crappy old Five Guys or whatever. Right? It's like, what could possibly be special about that?
So it was telling that when this news broke, my first thought was Fry's was still in business.
Yeah, I didn't think. I basically thought that every store except Best Buy had gone down.
Yep, and I'm still kind of amazed that Best Buy still exists, but I think I can come up with some reasons why.
I think they exist because they're the last one.
Coupled with they have an online presence that's pretty good. Like they just sell stuff online.
The same way that GameStop is the last one.
I am the last one.
GameStop is dying still, but Best Buy also, I think a lot of their stuff comes from the things that they sell that you can't just buy online, and also they get stuff, right?
Yep.
Supply runs out at other places.
I guess electronics are such an interesting, like they're not completely unique, but they're in a unique class of digital good or not digital goods, non-digital goods, physical meat space goods that people need to buy, because most people will only ever buy televisions or maybe whole computers. And there's a relatively small subset of the population who buys components of computers or more advanced electronics. I guess I'll leave appliances out. That's a whole different thing. Like Best Buy sells appliances.
Where would you buy appliances if not Best Buy? I guess.
I would just buy appliances online and have them drop shipped.
Me too, but I think while overall our society has gotten used to buying things online, I still don't. I'm not sure. I don't have but my gut tells me that like only people like us are going to buy a TV or a washing machine online. I think a lot of people...
TV is increasingly online from the data I've seen.
A lot of people would not do that. They would want to go to a Best Buy to buy your TV or your washing machine.
I think there's data that TVs at least are going the other route, but appliances might be like cars. I remember those old studies, I wonder if this is still true, showing that most people, when they want to buy a car, they basically buy whatever the dealerships kind of push on them. They never go out shopping for a specific car. Like there's a whole weird ecosystem around that. But anyway, with computer components in particular, we're in this interesting space right now in that, like, I won't buy computer parts from Amazon because I've gotten too many counterfeits and scams. Like in the last several years.
I have, but that was years ago, and the scam rate has gone way up since then.
Yep.
And I would buy some from there, but only after, very careful checking.
Yep. But the trend in this sector, in especially stuff like computer components where there's a big OEM market, is that I think people who know and want to buy these types of components are either going to go to a specialty retailer online like Newegg, which like focuses on that sector and is very trustworthy because their brand is on the line. And they're also buying name brands of the electronics themselves. Like they know what they want. They've done the research in advance and they're buying specific things, which means a generic electronics retailer, a physical one or an online one, doesn't have really an avenue to compete with that. Why would someone physically go to a Fry's when they could go to Newegg and get the same experience for a video card?
Sure, but I think that's also, if you think just in the physical shopping world, right? Let's say somebody wants to go to a store and buy a thing. Well, if you live in New York City, right, if I want to buy a thing, there's a store for that thing.
That is true.
Here, right? If you live out in the mega who knows where, right? It's like Walmart is the store. That's it. You got no other store. But if you live in between, you might have a Walmart and a Best Buy. But you're not going to have like a camera store there. It's not likely.
No.
It could be, but not likely to have a camera store or, like some kind of specialty place like that. So if you need something that is in any sort of electronic category, you might not even have a GameStop. It's like, yeah, that only place to buy video games in town is Best Buy. Or I guess Walmart does sell video games too, right? But
Yeah.
you get the idea, right? It's like,
But I
that's
guess
your store.
But I guess part of what's happening there too is that, what I just said about the brands, a lot of the kinds of electronics that might previously have been bought even by professionals in places like this, those are the kinds of people who are more likely to buy online. And the brands that actually sell those trustworthy goods are increasingly going direct to consumer. Like NZXT, you can buy NZXT computer components directly from NZXT. And I, as a personal rule, for like 5+ years now, if a brand I am buying something from, because I shop mostly based on brands and the trustworthiness of those brands, I will always buy direct if I can. I only go to a generic retailer if I cannot buy directly from the source. And if I have to go to a retailer, I always try to go to a specialty retailer first. Amazon is like the last resort. Or it's the place I go for undifferentiated commodified goods. Like, I need 10 white plates. I need something that is undifferentiated.
Sometimes price matters a little bit, right? So, there are situations.
I'll pay more to buy directly from the brand than from Amazon.
Depends how much more, right? It's easy to say when it's only a little bit more, right? But sometimes Amazon just has a huge sale, and if you're pretty sure you're gonna get legit goods.
Yep.
Right, then you can't, it's like, well, I got no choice. I'm saving $300, right? You can't say no to that.
But I think the world is moving toward this
no
space.
one can blame you for shopping on Amazon when you're saving $300. What
Oh
can you
yeah,
do? Right.
but I have increasingly found that buying direct is never more expensive than Amazon, except for very old things.
Yeah, I bought this new 4K monitor. I bought it from LG.com. Now, the LG.com web store, e-commerce software-wise, their website was not the greatest.
Yeah.
But the monitor is here, and I paid the right amount of money for it, And the last time I bought a video card, the 1050 that's in my HTPC, which was in 2018, I bought that from EVGA.com.
Yeah.
Directly. It totally showed up. Yeah. I paid a normal price for it. It's still it's still selling for what I paid for it in 2018.
But I think the future of non-commodified goods specifically, and this fries thing is just a symptom of this. I think we're going to see showroom big box stores where brands will pay to showcase their goods, but most of the actual purchasing will be done online, or if it's in those stores. Yeah.
There's tons of this in the city. There's like tons of like clothing stores.
That's where we bought our bed. We went to a bed store that had, the mattress. There was like 10 mattress brands, all just put like samples of other mattresses in this dumpy little storefront, and we laid on them all and then we bought one online right there.
Businesses, right? That are like, the kind that will like buy Instagram ads to sell their product, right? In the city, they open up little showrooms. It's literally just, all right, you really don't want to buy our stuff until you see it. Okay, well, we rented out the cheapest place. You can come see the stuff and then buy it online.
Yep. I guess the part that the get back to the GeekNights thing, like you and I and the way we shop, we also have to remember that we and people like us and like a lot of people listen to the show engage with buying things very differently. Because I think the average GeekNights listener, averaging one person doesn't really do much, but will have an idea of what they want first and then go look for that thing. But mass market purchasing by non-experts of any good is primarily driven by I want thing, and then it seems to be almost random which iteration of that thing they actually end up buying. Like marketing drives them. What happens to be in a store they physically visit drives them. And
it's like, all right, we're going to buy, they just think I want to buy a big new TV, and they go to, but they don't. Whereas we're like, I want to get this exact. I actually know what OLED means.
Like if I ever bought a car again, I'm not going to a fucking dealership. I'm going to know in advance I want this specific make, model, color, feature set, and I'm going to buy it, and that's it. I'm not going to talk to a human being. I'm going to try to buy it online if I can.
Yep. All right.
Some other news. You know, we always said Twitter can't make money because you're the product. Well, Twitter's getting desperate. They're really trying to make money. They're going to now allow people to have a subscription where I could say some of my tweets, you have to be paying me a monthly price to be able to see those tweets.
So the Twitch model.
The Twitch model, aka the Patreon model, aka
you subscribe to my tweets, and then Twitter takes a cut.
Yep, exactly. On one hand,
I mean that's slightly good in that you're not the product as much anymore.
Yeah,
if you block all ads.
I think most of the problems Twitter has as a platform, both in terms of damage to society and in terms of like the shitty experiences we have with it, I think most of them would have been resolved if Twitter had charged money for its service in some way rather than monetizing advertising from the beginning.
What I think is somewhat true and somewhat good thinking, at least correct thinking on the side of the Twitter people is like, hey, look, you know, we're seeing a lot more popularity on Twitter of like people making long threads.
Yeah.
Which is like, well, it's like Twitter was founded on the only post 140 characters, and now it's about posting a whole post, and it's like, let's just go back to blogs, people. Right?
I want to see that. I wish Twitter would just link to someone's blog instead of that thread, and they wrote their thread as a blog post with paragraphs.
Right, but
I'm an old man yelling at a cloud, so whatever.
Like, let's just delete Twitter and go back to blogging. Come on.
Yeah,
right?
like blogs have been around for a while.
Anyway. But anyway, Twitter is correct and wise to recognize that that's a thing, and that a lot of people are, you know, on Twitter to read those threads are usually quality. When I see a retweeted thread, that's usually the good stuff. That's what I'm on Twitter for, as long as you're following good people. And if there were to say, you know, someone retweets a thread and then it's like, oh, you want to follow that? You follow that person who posted the good thread, and it's like, oh, you know, that person's posting even more good stuff. Just pay like $1, and it's like,
Yeah, maybe. I like that's why I'm saying this is a good move.
Click on a thread, it's like 1 out of X, and the thread starts off good, and it's like to read whole thread, subscribe to this person's Twitter, $1. It's like,
yep,
maybe.
Especially if it was like absurdist words or like one of these anti-fascist accounts I follow or a good skeleton posting.
I'm not saying I'm a big fan of that, but I'm not entirely opposed. And
but that's why I'm saying
it's not ads.
This is a good thing. We as a society, irrespective of the broader problems of capitalism, we have to get some of our technology back to a point where the users pay for a service as opposed to the service milking the user's data for other purposes.
Right. But now there's the question of, you know, we're going to start, if they do this, we'll have to start asking all the same questions we ask about Twitch. It's like, okay, people are subscribing to, and YouTube also. People are subscribing to my tweets. I'm now a Twitter employee. Twitter, this is bullshit. And they're going to have all those battles again, right? And it's like...
But it also shows a couple other things. One, Twitter is probably in trouble and trying to monetize because fleets didn't work and ads definitely aren't fucking working for them.
Just charge money to have an account. It's that simple.
Yep. And you know, the magic sauce would be, it's free to have an account that lets you read. And maybe you can even like follow and reply in some limited capacity, but to have regular full-on Twitter, you got to pay like $2 a year.
I mean, consider this, right? So Tweetbot, which is a third-party IO app for Twitter, right? That lets you block all ads and is just better in most ways than the official Twitter app, right? I had Tweetbot 5, which only cost a flat one-time fee to buy the app, and then you have it forever. But they recently came out with Tweetbot 6, which is slightly improved. And I was like, fuck it. I use this app like more than most other apps. You know, they want like a few dollars a year instead of a flat fee. Okay, so I got Tweetbot 6 for a few dollars a year. That's money Twitter could have just had if they would have sold me no ads, no nothing, and I would have just not used Tweetbot, used the official Twitter app and paid them that money.
But also think about the incremental cost of tweeting is zero. If it costs money to have full access to Twitter's features, 99% of bots disappear instantly.
Yep. True.
So I think this actually is a good move for Twitter, and I think it foretells a possible if Twitter runs into enough problems of failing to monetize all the bullshitty ways, eventually either Twitter will fall enough to where investors who just want it to make a profit without having to pay back all the VCs could run it, and then it could be a real product again, or it'll somehow make enough money to be healthy in a way that isn't just trying to cram ads into people's faces that relies on bot networks and outrage culture. So we'll see how this all goes. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good thing. I'm not going to make you pay to read my tweets, though, because my tweets are not that great.
No, there's nothing I tweet is worth money.
All right, I think I'll skip one of these news as we go on a little while. One last thing. This is a science news, partly a health news, but also this is one of those things where we talk a lot. Like Scott will often say things like a new study comes out that proves something, and Scott says, but we always knew that. Yes, we have conventional wisdom, but having data and evidence to back something up is really important because sometimes longstanding wisdom can be wrong. This is a study talking about running and cycling and the impact of yeah, you sent me this. This is a great article.
28. This is old news.
It is old news, but we didn't talk about it, and almost no one talked about it except in very narrow circumstances.
Well, people talked about it. You probably just didn't hear.
Yeah, I don't follow
didn't
biking
hear either,
people.
though, so
It seems like biking people were talking about it a lot, and as far as I can tell, the running community didn't even notice because they don't care.
anyway,
But basically, the study and the data shows that if we're not talking about like your physical body's like VO2 max heart rate, like oxygen processing and muscles, like if you get past the point, like you're above the line where you're good at those parts, like you've optimized your own physical body in that regard, there's a question about whether or not training in a sport, like getting better at the technique of the sport, can make you more efficient at that sport or better at that sport.
Think of the VO2 max, your cardiovascular system, right, as sort of the engine. It provides power, right?
Yep.
So you can level up your power. You can get more horsepower, right? You can make your body just freaking stronger and you have more power.
Yep.
But it's how much, okay, well, you have this power now. Let's say your body has 100 horsepower, whatever that is in body terms, right? It's like, okay, well, I have 100 horsepower, but how fast do I actually run? Do I run 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, right? It's like how much, I have to convert that energy into actually going, right? So that's the efficiency we're talking about here. Is like, yeah, you can level up your power by working out or whatever, increase your VO2 max to whatever your body's limit is based on your DNA and other environmental restrictions. But you got to convert that into the actual going.
Yep.
Right? How efficient are your muscles at doing what they do?
Yep. So
That's what we're talking about here.
And that efficiency also covers technique. Do you have techniques that could possibly improve that in some way, in a measurable way, beyond just making the engine better? So imagine
Your VO2
baseball.
max could be X, and without increasing it at all, you can just change the way you move your body with a coach and some training, and throw something harder, farther, faster, better, because you learn to do it the proper way.
If I magically had the exact same body as some professional baseball home run hitter, could I hit the same number of home runs, or are there skills I can input above and beyond that power? This study shows something very interesting. With running, technique matters, and you can improve your physical efficiency by training. Your body will change in ways beyond just the engine to make you more efficient. And there appears to be no serious upper bound to that. Like you can keep training and keep getting more efficient. I mean, obviously there's an eventual bound. It's your physical human body.
There's also a bound on, the real bound is just on the engine part.
Yep.
Right?
The engine's going to limit you before like you can't get better at the efficiency part. But with cycling,
the gains in efficiency won't matter too much because your engine is topped out.
So if you get to the
flooring at the end.
Yep. So if you just keep training at running and practicing running, you will get better, even if your cardiovascular system does not get better. But cycling, once you get to a basic, this baseline level of efficiency and skill of doing the motions of cycling, it appears that you cannot get more efficient.
Yep.
There's nothing else you can do. Bikes are great.
Most of the efficiency of bicycling comes from the bicycle.
Yep.
Right? It's, you're just putting that horsepower pretty much directly into the bicycle, and it's so efficient that like there's nothing different you can do body-wise besides put more power into the pedals. It's like put the power in the pedals, there you go, right?
Yep.
You're good.
So the argument that was made then was that if you are a cyclist and you are training that engine, you're training like the cardiovascular system, you can actually be more efficient in your training by doing cross training with running instead of training cycling, because you can work out the engine more in less time. Doing more time in the saddle won't actually help you that much once you get to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, things of the day. What do you got?
What did I have? Oh yeah, I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. It's almost news territory, but then our friend at YouTube, Big Clive,
My boy.
Big Clive, with his excellent electronics related videos on YouTube, he has a certain style that is somewhat off-putting, but not shouty YouTube guy and not wrong. And that's why I like Big Clive.
Yep.
Anyway, but yeah, I've been wanting to talk about these Dubai lamps. So if you haven't heard, right, I guess king, I don't know what is the king of Dubai, is emperor of Dubai, sultan of Dubai. I don't know what the person is. I'm sorry, person who runs Dubai. But also I'm not sorry because you're sometimes doing bad things.
Yep.
But a somewhat bad/good thing you've done is you ordered the creation by commission in partnership with Philips, the company that makes light bulbs and a million other things, these light bulbs, and you have a license on them. So now they're your light bulbs and they're not sold anywhere else in the world, and it's hard to get them anywhere else in the world. You have to get them sent from Dubai. And basically he was like, yeah, I want more efficiency, again, to the topic of the day. He wanted more efficient light bulbs in Dubai, right? The LED ones were not that efficient in terms of watts per, I guess, lumen, or however you're going to measure it, right? He wanted, and he wanted light bulbs that lasted longer. So if you look at LED light bulbs that you get in, your local store in not Dubai, anyone who lives outside Dubai, which is, I imagine, 99.99% of our listenership, if not 100, you're going to see that there's actually very few LEDs in there. They're running those LEDs kind of hot to put out more light. And as a result, they sort of burn out faster. Not that they burn out as fast as old filament light bulbs, which burn out super fast, but they won't last as long because you're running them hot and you're getting, less light per watt per electricity that you're putting into the bulb. So how did they solve this in Dubai? They basically just made light bulbs. And Big Clive does a nice teardown explaining everything about these light bulbs. They just put more LEDs in there and ran them lower. They put less power into each LED, but there's more of them. So you're getting more light. You're not getting necessarily each individual, right, diode is putting out less light, but there's more of them. And each one is getting less power to it, but there's more of them. Right. But yeah, it's a more efficient bulb with more, right, that lasts longer. Because you're running them cooler, right? They're not heating up so much, taking more damage over time. These bulbs probably last forever. But then again, if you're anyone in Dubai, you now basically by decree only have 3 light bulbs to choose from, or 4 light bulbs to choose from. That's it. They have to use this light bulb everywhere in Dubai. You can't use any other kind of light bulb anymore, right? The end, which rules out a lot of different styles of light bulb. But it's really fascinating, and it's also questionable, right, as to whether this is actually better or not. Because on the one hand, let's say the whole world had the same decree, right? Use these Dubai lamps everywhere on Earth, right? That would be very power efficient. It would save us a lot of electricity coming from the power plants, right? Whatever are powering our power plants, we would be able to cut down on that, and that's a good thing in terms of the environment. But we'd have to make a lot more LEDs, right? Each one of these bulbs has way more LEDs in it. And there's materials and manufacturing cost that goes into making these. They're more expensive to buy, even if you could get them. They're a few dollars more than the other normal style.
Yep. Now, everything I have ever read about the transition to CFLs and LEDs so far is that because incandescent bulbs used so much electricity that nearly unlimited mining and supply chain to make these things, as long as they last long enough, in general, is worth it. But
yes, I'm not comparing these to the old light bulbs. I'm comparing these Dubai LED lamps to the ones we have, which are also LEDs, just less efficient, right? Because what if I get less efficient LEDs, but there's less LEDs in there? So the manufacturing, there's way less materials used. We can get 4 or 5 bulbs instead of 1.
Yep, but the fact that they wear out faster is the real problem.
They wear out
possibly.
faster is true, but you could power them, right, with a solar cell, and it doesn't matter if it's more or less efficient, really, because if as long as you have sufficient power to power it, it's green energy, right? Manufacturing any of them is not, even if the factory was run on solar cells, the materials are still mined,
Yep.
right, at some point. So it's questionable. I don't know. So I have to do the math on that, but it's still fascinating. And Big Clive here will break down the circuitry for you, which is also fascinating.
It's interesting because in my own life, I've transitioned almost all my lights increasingly to intrinsic lighting fixtures that have like their own inbuilt like arrays of LEDs that are not replaceable. So my thing of the day, it's something that is not like, it's not good and you probably shouldn't use it, but it's neat. So you might have noticed that whole hubbub about GameStop stocks and all the stock market nonsense going on and the diamond holds and all this, rocket ships. So a lot of nerds are really into trying to trade in the stock market and trying to make money with cryptocurrencies, which we'll get into in the main bit. And some enterprising nerd has made what they're calling the GameStop terminal. I want to read this about because it's really, really short. GameStop terminal is an awesome stock and crypto market terminal that is developed for fun. When I saw my GME shares tanking, the implementation in Python allows to easily add more commands, expand on the configuration. Feel free to make requests. I'm happy to work on them in my spare time. It's basically the way people are talking about it is it's a quote Bloomberg terminal, but it's open and it's for the masses and anyone can just use it.
Well, it has an interface similar to a Bloomberg terminal.
Yep, it's a command line interface where you can type stuff and see stock stuff.
So if you were used to using a Bloomberg terminal, you might kind of get a similar user
literally
experience.
Worthless if you're used to using a Bloomberg terminal because here's...
But I'm saying the user experience in terms of like, the interface.
Not even, because I'm looking at...
trying to mimic it, right? The same way,
well,
like,
this is why I'm making it my thing of the day. The way people are talking about this thing, like, oh yeah, it's like a Bloomberg terminal. Using it and looking at it and like seeing the way people are talking about it and what it is, I hesitate. This is almost a cargo cult equivalent of stock market interactions. Like this is this is the kind of tool someone would make if they had seen what stock market stuff looks like, but didn't actually understand how and why people trade stocks and tried to make something that had the visual aesthetic of a tool they happen to have seen. Because basically, all it lets you do is use a kind of mediocre command line interface to make it draw charts of stock prices and run really simplistic regression models against those prices and look up publicly available data from like sources out there. Things like the Bloomberg terminal, that interface is not what people pay for. Nobody's paying to have something that will draw a graph.
From Yahoo Finance.
Yeah, Yahoo Finance does more than this little terminal does. People pay for those types of services because they give you data. The data is the only thing anyone wants with any one of these platforms out there. And this is the interface that is superficially similar to one of those platforms, but without any of that data that's actually worth anything.
I think that, that's someone who hasn't used one of those things, right?
Yep.
It's just some day trading GameStop buying person doesn't really know what's, going on. So
and it's extra fascinating to see what commands were implemented first based on what people care about. Because they have this section called due diligence where you can like type the word news to see the latest news for some company, or type the word read to see recent posts on Reddit about this company, or type the word short to see the short interest in this company. Like that stuff's just in Yahoo or Google Finance or whatever. And no one who would use a tool like this has any idea how to actually use any of the information they would get out of it to make a stock trade. A human being is not looking at stuff like this to make stock trades. This is like, you're just a hobbyist playing a game and you're going to fuck yourself over. Don't trade stocks if you don't know what you're doing.
Don't trade stocks, period.
Yeah. Well, let some like 401k trade them for you. In the meta moment. Yeah.
I do have a meta moment.
Whoa.
Yeah, right. So I found out, since I'm spending a lot more time playing video games, I was poking around Steam and I was cleaning out my Steam friends list because I had way too many Steam friends and it was hard to find actual friends in that list. So I sorted it out a whole bunch. And I'm sorry if I unfriended you, because there were a lot of people whose names I'm like, I think that's a listener, but I don't know them. And it's not like I'm playing games with them or messaging them or anything, right? So why am I friends with them on Steam? So I unfriended a lot of people. If you want to be my Steam friend, you could just message me on any platform and I will be your Steam friend again if you want to play games with me. It's not don't be sad.
Actually, speaking of which, along those lines, I mentioned this in the Stinger a couple episodes ago, and I posted in a few places. I'm going to start up a play-by-mail game of Civ 6 for any of the listeners who want to be in. I'm looking for like 8 to 10 players, and I will make a post. Well, we're going to do online speed instead of quick speed for obvious reasons. But I'm going to make a Google form post. People can like put their stuff in so I can make sure I am friends with you on Steam so I can invite you into this game when I start it up in a week or two.
Anyway, so while I was doing that, I took note of some Steam features, right? And I noticed, I've known for a while that there's like this Steam curator feature, because occasionally I'll see people like linking to Steam curator pages on Twitter, and it's like, here's the list of games we've got together, we're promoting as a group or stuff like that, right? And I realized, like, wait a minute, that curator thing is like a Steam group feature, and there's been a GeekNights group on Steam for like ever. It has actually lots of people in it. I don't know how people aren't using the group, but they're in the group. It's got, I think, a couple hundred people at least in there. And you can make a curator page to go with your Steam group. So I went ahead and did that.
Yeah.
So there is now a GeekNights Steam curator page, which I basically included the games we recently talked about on this podcast. But, maybe we'll do a little bit more over there. Who knows?
I've been thinking about what I might want to curate in there.
Yeah, but there's actually a whole bunch of features that I haven't really thought about, but they're in there. So there is basically this perpetual chat room that's just always there. That's like the GeekNights Steam chat room. We have a GeekNights Discord. You can come there. I don't think you need to use the GeekNights Steam chat room, but it exists. It's a thing, I guess. There was a little forum on there with one post in it. I just deleted that forum. There's still a link to go to that forum. There's like a discussions tab on the Steam group. But if you click on it, you'll get an error now because I deleted the forum. And they don't remove the tab when you don't have any forums. And we can make announcements there as well. So I am using Steam a lot more these days, being at home all day. So if you want to do GeekNights Steam Biz, and you don't really need to be friends with me directly on Steam if you're just in the GeekNights Steam group. All right, it's a public group. You can just join it. Totally public. Just come on in. You can just search for it. There it is. I don't think you think you're smart enough to type GeekNights into Steam to find it. And you can follow the little curator page. And then even if you never want to listen to our stupid podcast, which I guess you are doing it now, but you'll see when if we ever talk about
There's 23 people in the stream right now.
Yeah, if we talk about a game that happens to be on Steam, I'm gonna try to remember to go add it to our little curator page. And we can also add like some extra lists to it too. We can be like, list games Scott likes that Rim doesn't, or something like that. Yeah,
well, you'll see more stuff appear in there because that's low effort for us to work on.
If you're ever sitting there and you're like, man, there's a Steam sale, what should I buy? Or, man, I really like to play a game right now, but I don't know which game, and I've played all the games on my Steam library. Let me go actually buy a new game. You can go to the GeekNights Steam curator page and see if any of those games strike your fancy.
So, along those lines, actually, I'll shit talk it now because I've been working on this for a while. You know how, if you're not aware, I put every board game review we've ever done on YouTube. It's basically the part of the GeekNights episode that's the review without like things of the day or news or any of that other crap. It's just the review of that game. And they're pretty much all on YouTube except a handful of like games we reviewed in episodes from like 2005 where like that garbage review we did of T&E as part of a larger episode in literally 2005 does not need to be on YouTube. But
that does remind me of something.
Oh, there's some meta. Look at this. So that was successful, and if you're not aware of that, go check it out. I'll link to it. I am working on doing the same thing for all the video games we've ever reviewed, meaning you'll be able to find, link to, and listen to the review of any video game we've ever talked about without any of the news and other nonsense as well, and I'll start publishing those on a semi-weekly basis once I get my pipeline completely rocking and a little bit ahead.
So that reminds me is that in that Steam curator page, we have the ability to link from our curating page directly to our review of the game.
Oh, look at that. It's almost like the thing I just said and the thing you just said is going to make it real easy to find out.
Go to the curator page and you see a game and you're like, should I get this game? Well, right there in Steam is an embedded YouTube video of us reviewing the Geek Nights episode of us talking about that game. So
Yeah.
that's helpful. And the other thing I forgot about is that the Steam curator thing has a feature where people can actually send games to us saying like, it's sort of like an inbox on Steam on the curator page from like for game creators, people who are making games and putting them on Steam to send those games to us and saying, hey, please check out my game. So I guess you can try to use that. I can't promise I'm going to play your game, but you can try to use it. I don't know. See what happens.
Well, we got people in the stream talking about they're going to engage with this. I think we should, we'll do a lot with the Steam group.
Well, maybe not. We'll see.
It's low-hanging fruit. The effort is low.
Right. Like I'm saying is we on every single platform, Steam, Discord, Twitter, not so much Facebook anymore. The Instagram, if I remember to use it, everywhere. We are on every platform, wherever YouTube, we are there. Right. So you can come and find us in the place that you like to be, including even Steam.
All right. So this won't be a super long main bit, but realize we've never done a show on this, and I think it is worth.
You deleted a show on this?
Yeah, definitely.
Sure we talked about this. We've trashed coins in the past.
Yeah, but what we've never done is done an episode to actually, as a main bit, like talk about what this stuff is. So we're gonna talk about cryptocurrency, like as a concept, because it's new. Right. This did not exist in any meaningful way until.
It's actually more years old than you realize at this point.
So in the early to mid 2000s, there was chatter.
Been dead by now, but I was wrong.
There was chatter about this kind of thing, but Bitcoin, like the famous one that people know, that kind of kicked off a lot of interest in it. 2009, like that's when that appeared.
Yep, that's right.
So what a cryptocurrency is actually a complicated question to answer because
it's an easy question to answer.
Well, it's complicated if you actually think about what this technology does, because fundamentally what cryptocurrencies do is make a ledger, a generic ledger. Imagine like an Excel spreadsheet.
Literally a spreadsheet.
Yep. But I say ledger because spreadsheet implies some other features that these don't have. But it means that there could be a spreadsheet out there that I can put updates into, and Scott can put updates into, and Scott and I can agree to put an update in together. And the spreadsheet itself will prove who put those updates in there and when. It'll prove that, Rim and Scott agreed to put this update in there. And it'll prove that those updates have not been tampered with. And I don't have to trust Scott, and Scott doesn't have to trust me, and neither of us has to trust the ledger itself. We can, there's distributed trust that, quote, just works.
Yeah. So fundamentally, the principle of the cryptocurrency, right, is actually the only positive thing about it, right? And I can see why that principle is so alluring that has dragged people into it, despite literally everything else about it being absolute dog shit. So the principle is like, hey, if you wanted to set up like, a bank or a new currency digitally, the easy way to do it is just make a server that has a spreadsheet and just keeps track of everything, right? Yep. And if anyone wants to do anything, they would contact the server, and the server would say, okay, so-and-so's given $10 to so-and-so, and write it down. So, and they'll just have a database that keeps track of how much money everyone has. It's super simple, super easy. It just works. It's just great. But the problems with that is who's controlling that server?
Yep.
Right?
Now,
can you trust them?
Now, the answer, though, the reason why these aren't big problems, we can trust the people running those things for the most part.
But I want to give money to someone else, but I don't want anyone else to know. I want it to be secret, right? It's like, it's all these, what if the government takes down the server? They don't like what you're doing.
Well, I guess that's why I wanted to say there was a complicated answer, because they call it a cryptocurrency, but all it really is a distributed shared ledger. The currency aspect of it is the use case people imagined for this technology first, which was basically have something digital that acts like physical cash.
Yep.
An intrinsic asset. If I give Scott $20 physically, the only way to get that back from him is to fight him and take it, or break into his house and steal $20. I can't undo the transaction. I can't like call Andrew Jackson on the phone and be like, yeah, I need that $20 back from Scott.
Right. But if we're using, say, a centralized currency, like say World of Warcraft gold,
No.
right? World of Warcraft could just be like, you know what? We're deleting half the gold in the world. We're just gonna delete your account. We're gonna, you mined gold. You were gold farming and selling the gold. We're gonna delete all your account and get rid of all that gold, right?
Yep.
It's like they just run it, and it's like, well, you don't want that. You want to, right?
Well, some people don't want that. Some people do want that, because I'm gonna make a very specific argument right now. I don't want to get into currencies and like economics in this episode too much, but I am of the opinion that you generally do want governments and professionals heavily manipulating currency to achieve desirable social outcomes.
Yeah, maybe in some cases.
In World of Warcraft, in a video game, I would like the game developer to have the ability to fuck with the in-game currency to make the game better. Imagine if World of Warcraft used some blockchain Bitcoin technology and literally had no way to interfere with the valuation of the in-game currency.
Right. Anyway, so that principle, though, is alluring, no doubt, especially for, anti-authoritarian people, which I think people on the far right and the far left are combined in our anti-authoritarianism. Right?
Yep.
We don't want kings, right? I guess maybe people on the far right do want a king, but they don't want the king we have.
Yep.
So they're anti this authority, even if they're not, they're anti-existing authority, even if they're not anti-all authority.
Yep.
Right. And anarchists are anti-all authority, right? So there's sort of this combined desire for the core principle. But the implementation of Bitcoin specifically, and many of the followers of Bitcoin,
Pretty much all cryptocurrencies
have fallen on this one question, which is the problem whenever you're starting any new currency is, okay, we've started a new currency. Well, you print money. Okay, you printed $1 billion. You've got them in a pile. It's like, it's not doing anything until you give it out to people. Well, how much do we give out to who? Right? Who gets what to start with? Are we just going to give everyone in the world one and then that's it? Or are we going to, what are you going to, you need some way to determine how much you're going to give to who to start with. The second problem that all cryptocurrencies have that regular currencies might not necessarily have is that because you have this distributed ledger, you need people to use their computers to sort of run the ledger and to, make it work. It's not because there isn't a central computer doing all the work and keep track of everything. You need people to turn on their computers and run software that will make the thing go. If not enough, let's say I started a cryptocurrency today, and the only computer running the cryptocurrency was one that I bought and set up in like the cloud, just a little cloud server. If this currency got popular and people started using it, let's say I gave everyone in the world one Scott dollar. If they started using it, basically it would take so long for that computer to do even like one transaction because it's one little weak computer. It would be a useless currency because you have to wait for my little computer to do work every time you're exchanging the $1 that I gave everybody, right?
Yeah, but even worse, now it's basically just a centralized currency again because Scott's server is the only server.
Sure.
Like,
exactly. So
you don't get any of the supposed benefits of the technology itself.
yeah, so the way Bitcoin decided to solve basically both of these problems at once. How do we give out the money and how do we get people to turn on their computers and make them help us run this network of, computation? They combined both of those problems into one solution, which is the worst idea ever. And basically they said, hey, look, you're going to run your computer and help run the Bitcoin network, right? Help, enter transactions and process them and do all that stuff for this shared ledger. And we're basically going to run a lottery, sort of effectively, right? Where, every 10 minutes or so, every amount of work, which is adjusted to sort of, bring it down to, 1 per 10 minutes. They keep adjusting it to sort of keep it in that window. We're just going to give a Bitcoin to someone who is doing that work every 10 minutes or so. They just give out another coin until there's a set number of how many coins they're going to give out, and then it's done. But that number is off in the future, so that's not a problem yet, but it will be.
Yeah, well, the important thing about that technology is that it's using, there's there's more than two, but these are the only two that anyone really seriously talks about of how to make these networks run, either proof of stake or proof of work. Because you need to have a way to get a bunch of people to do what Scott described. And you have to make sure that enough people are doing that, that there isn't just one sole authority running the whole thing, because then they can start fucking with it.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
proof of stake is the idea. And again, I'm super paraphrasing here because I don't think this technology is useful or like for most purposes on Earth. So I don't think you need to learn a lot about it. Nor do I want to learn that much more about it, to be honest. But proof of stake would basically mean, imagine if, all right, I want the Bitcoin network to keep working. So I keep computers running to make a part of it keep working. But they don't use a ton of resources like they do today. In order to participate in the network, I have to freeze some percentage of the Bitcoins I own, like some real money worth of that asset in a provable way, basically saying if the work I'm doing on the network is found to be fraudulent, I lose my stake. I care that the network continues to function. Thus, I have no incentive to fuck with the network because I would lose so much personally that it wouldn't be worth it to me. And there's more to it than that. Proof of work is what most of these things use. Proof of work is basically solve Sudokus by idling your car's engine. Just do a bunch of worthless computing. And like solve problems that are specifically very, very difficult to solve, but very easy to prove that someone has solved. And if we've talked about cryptography in an old episode, think of this as like non-reversible math, or difficult to reverse math, or asymmetric math, easy to go one way, hard to go the other way. That's the basis of all cryptography.
If I'm trying to figure out Rim's password, it's really hard to figure out. I have to guess and guess and guess and guess and guess. But if I get it right, it's very easy to know I have the right one. It's like, is this the correct password? Yes, that's a very easy question to answer. It takes 2 seconds, like a millisecond. It's so fast.
So before getting into the real cost and problem with these algorithms and how Bitcoin in particular, but it just applies to all of these currencies. The problem is that we use the term currency. People talk about these as a cryptocurrency. However, in practice, the popular cryptocurrencies aren't used as currencies. They're used solely as speculative investments.
Yep.
People are only participating because they assume that the value of these things will go up over time and they will make money.
You see that a Bitcoin is worth $1 zillion, right? And you say, well, if I turn on my computer and have it waste energy, in the next 10 minutes, there's a good chance I'm entering this lottery every 10 minutes, basically. And the more computers I turn on, the more lottery tickets I get. So if I can do that, then I can win this lottery. And that if the coin is worth so much, if I win the lottery, and I'll win about these many. So that means I'll be able to pay for this many computers as long as some rube is willing to give me real money, because I can't obviously pay for, or the person who's selling me the computers and the electricity is a rube who will take the coins. Right? But in that case, what are you doing? Someone's paying you in coins to run a computer, and then you're just paying for the computers with coins. You're doing nothing. Like what are you getting out of it? Maybe there's some profit there, margin of real dollars in there somewhere, of like a spare coin that you don't need. You get an extra, you minted 5 coins. It only cost you 3 to pay for the computers, and you sold 2 to someone else for cash, real cash, right? No one wants actual coins. People want real cash. Right? The allure of the Bitcoin is that you can turn it into real dollars, right? No one wants to bring in coins. They want real dollars. If a Bitcoin was worth $0, real dollars, and you couldn't pay your rent with it, no one would give a shit.
Now, this is the interesting problem. Most of the talk around Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, especially in the early days, was around using it as a decentralized currency to be a transaction network that didn't rely on the banks. So, I could buy, I don't know, a video card from Fry's online and literally just pay with Bitcoins and have an intrinsic cash-like transaction online. But in practice,
in principle, would be good, especially for doing illegal things you don't want.
Yep, that's that second part I was about to say, because the problem with cash-based transactions is that their non-reversibility and difficulty of traceability, it causes a lot more problems than it solves. Because it's difficult to regulate.
Right, you think about a normal person, doing anonymous transactions, maybe buy some weed or something. It's like, okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? But usually it's going to be money laundering, right?
Yep.
It's going to be real crime that you don't want happening. It's not, right? And then any normal person, it's like average person can just use regular cash. It's like,
Yeah,
what did
but
it mean?
that's like all the arguments as to why we would want to use a cryptographic intrinsic currency are pretty specious at best, because most of the arguments are around, oh, well, you don't want the payment processors to control things. While
Right,
they're
you
extracting
avoided some
money from the
payment
system,
processing fees. Great, sure.
yeah,
It's,
but those fees arguably pay for that system existing and working in the first place, and
Mhm.
the incremental cost to individual users is relatively low.
Yeah. Also, it's like, you could, even if the coin network, right, wasn't eating up all the power on Earth and causing horrific climate, change, if it was just, a few computers, a few people did it, it was all good, right? The fact that the value of the coins is constantly changing makes them not a good currency.
Yeah,
People
they're
only
so
think-
volatile. I might try to buy pizza from like the local pizza shop, and by the time the transaction finishes, Bitcoin went up $1,000, and now I literally paid $100 for my pizza.
Or right, so currencies that you actually use for buying and selling goods on a frequent basis need to be relatively stable. They don't need to be absolutely stable, right?
They need to be predictable, even if they are not necessarily stable.
right.
Like slowly inflating over time, totally fine.
Right. If the value of a dollar is like dropping precipitously, people rush out to spend dollars really quick, right? Before they're not worth anything. It's like, quick, give me that pizza. That pizza's value isn't changing, but the dollar is becoming worthless. Quick, take my dollars, right? I don't want them. But if the value is rising, people just hoard it. They just put that shit in the mattress and they wait and they don't buy anything. Right?
Oh, this is even worse than that. Cash and cryptocurrencies have this fundamental problem. They're intrinsic, right? So even if they're super volatile or not volatile, let's say they were perfectly like one Bitcoin was worth $1 and that was magically like real, didn't have to worry about stability. They locked it in somehow. It's still cash. Cash can be stolen. You can rob someone of cash. Cash can be lost in a fire. How many Bitcoins are buried in an encrypted hard drive where someone forgot the password?
Yep, there's a lot of Bitcoins that are just gone because someone lost the encryption key, and that's it. There's no way to get them out.
Yep. The whole
I guess you could try to I wonder if we could like find. See, but thing is, I think that would cost more than just mining coins. Is if you could find some abandoned coins and try to mine the key to try to unlock them.
There are people doing just that.
Okay, but it's like I think it might be more efficient to just mine coins, which isn't efficient at all.
But effectively, all the arguments for cryptocurrencies being used as actual currencies, for the most part, have been ridiculous because in practice, no one gives a shit about these as currencies. They don't solve any problem that most people have. The way people buy and sell things actually works really well today for the most part. So as speculative instruments, like, they're just a bubble, like all bubbles. They're not worth anything, and someday this whole ridiculous system is going to come crashing down. But the third problem is that because we're using these proof-of-work algorithms, not only do they not solve a problem people actually have, but they are literally destroying the Earth.
Yep. The Bitcoin now, people are spending more electricity mining coins than like entire countries worth of people, right? I think it's like basically, I think you should just. I really don't have a problem with going around and just like if you're mining coins, we just confiscate all your computers.
Yep, I honestly think governments of the world should make it illegal to use and interact with the Bitcoin network or any proof of work currency that is traded as an asset. Like
it's not because of the principle, right? That core principle is very anti-government, and I actually agree with that core principle of like, fuck the man, let's get our own money that's out of government control. It's like, that's actually kind of
to a point. The problem with that,
you can't destroy the Earth to do that, right?
I would argue that even that, the idea of a currency not controlled by governments and experts, is probably more dangerous than valuable to society.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, but it's also cyberpunk cool.
Yeah, it's cyberpunk cool, but all the cyberpunk cool things are trying to fight against the systems that are entrenched in neoliberal late capitalism anyway. Like Shadowrun, like, oh yeah, cool, we got cred sticks with intrinsic digital cash. Half the plots of that game are, let's murder that dude and steal his cred stick.
So now there's one more cryptocurrency related thing I want to talk about. So this is news literally like a couple days ago. So I never knew how to pronounce this musician's name. It's 3LAU. I don't know if it's Elau or 3Lau, or I never knew how to say this person's name. I'm sorry. But anyway, basically what this person did recently is there's a thing called an NFT, a non-fungible token.
Oh my God, I'm extra mad about those.
Well, okay, so there's good and bad parts to this again, right? So a dollar is fungible. By fungible in this sense, we mean that if I got $1 and Rim's got $1, right? We can swap dollars and it's the same. $1 is $1, right? A Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. Bitcoins are fungible, right? It doesn't matter if I have Bitcoin A or Bitcoin B, they're both one Bitcoin, right? Imagine if every single Bitcoin, right, was a unique snowflake. So imagine a good example for nerds be Pokemon cards, right? So at the Pokemon card factory, instead of printing, 1,000 Charizard cards, every single Pokemon card that comes out of the printer is a brand new Pokemon. There's 1 million Pokemon and they're all unique Pokemon. To catch them all, you would need 1 million Pokemon. Literally every Pokemon in the universe is perfectly unique, right? So what they do is they make a cryptocurrency, right? Not Bitcoin, a different one. And they make it to where each and every coin in the currency is a unique snowflake. Right? It's like I have number 5. And in this way, you can do some cool things, right? It still has all the same awful problems of all the other cryptocurrencies, right? That we've talked about already. But the sort of unique and only positive feature, and this is what 3Lau is, or however you say the person's name, I should really look it up before I talked about them, is they're selling their art this way. And it's basically like, hey, we're basically selling like limited edition artworks, right? It's like you couldn't sell a limited edition artwork in the digital realm normally, right? If you make a JPEG, it's like there's infinity JPEGs now, deal with it, right? But in the real world, you could print 1,000 albums and that's it. There's 1,000 albums, the end. So the NFT allows you to be like, hey, here I've made 1,000 albums, or even 1,000 unique songs, and each one is right. And then you attach your artwork to the currency, coins, unique coins, NFTs, and now look, this person sold them for all of them in total for $3.666666 million.
And didn't this use like more electricity than that studio spent in 2 years to accomplish?
Yeah, something like that.
These non-fungible tokens are also using a ton of electricity.
He sold a collection of limited edition NFTs for 3.66.
Also, I want to point out that
also broke the record in non-fungible token sales by selling 33 unique items for a total of $11 million.
So the problem with these non-fungible tokens, though, is that they don't prove ownership or restrict ownership of anything. People can still copy the underlying asset. All they do is there's one shared ledger somewhere that says Scott owns this one. Doesn't mean you actually have it, own it, can do anything in particular with it except transfer that ownership. It's not really different than a server that just says who owns what scan at what time.
Mm-hmm. But as long as human, it's the same thing with the Bitcoin. If people are willing to put value on that, right? The same way someone's, there's World of Warcraft. There's just a database somewhere that says your character has a sword. The people at Blizzard could push a button and do an update statement in their SQL database and give everyone a full inventory of every rare, they're all the items. Right? It's like, ta-da, it's done. It's completely false scarcity, right? But it's a way to create a false scarcity in the digital realm, which can be cool, can also be kind of not cool.
Yep.
Right?
But remember, this isn't like, the Wu-Tang album is on this, like only whoever has the key can listen to the Wu-Tang album at any particular time.
It would be like that as if you did a digital one and you just made one non-fungible token.
No, it wouldn't, because people can just copy the music out and share it without the token. The only thing the token gives you is you can point at that database and say, at that ledger and say, I own that.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't actually prevent anyone else from having the actual thing.
Maybe not. Anyway, it depends on what the thing is. If the thing is like, they use this technology with like those crypto cats, right? And it's like, you go to the website and it's like, that's Scott's crypto cat, the same way it's your sword in World of Warcraft, right? It's like it's
But
tied to
again,
that thing.
this is the interesting problem.
You log into the game checks the ledger, and now the game sees that I own the sword, so I have the sword. Your character in the game doesn't have the sword because the ledger doesn't say you have it.
So
The
there
game is
are
the ledger as its database.
There's a bunch of game companies that want to do this kind of thing for skins, to have skins be like themselves tradable outside of the games and do things like that.
You can just do it the old-fashioned way that they do it now.
Yeah, the problem. This is the problem. All the ways people like to use cryptocurrencies for currency, like actual currency, are just kind of failures. All the ways people try to use this technology for these other interesting things, it is the use cases where just putting a database in place is somehow not the option, and somehow this technology makes this thing work, are vanishingly small. There's almost no reason to ever use this kind of technology for any of these use cases compared to traditional methods.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess TLDR, right? I think that all the people who support coins, right, are, some I can partially understand. It's like they're so allured by the principle of the coin, right? Jack from Twitter, the CEO of Twitter, is one of these people, right? And that the promise and the principle of the non-government, give it to the man, cyberpunk, money of the people, right? That principle, you can believe in it so strongly, but when you look at the reality of how these things work, the actual effect they've had, the actual results, literally everything about them, they've lived up to that principle basically not at all.
Yep. They're pretty much used almost exclusively as money laundering instruments for crime, or as speculative instruments.
Yes. And pretty much everyone who's like, it's telling that everyone who is pro coin is like, when I first heard of the coins, people were, they always talk about them in the future tense. They're like, they see the promise of coins. Like, they're admitting coins aren't there yet, right? Like, they're basically saying coins suck now, but they still believe in them in the future. And that's what someone says when they still own the asset in a Ponzi scheme, or when at the top of a pyramid scheme.
Well, like, look at in those early days how many scams and like cyber thefts happened of these digital assets, because they're intrinsic assets. Like, you can steal them.
But there is no, in my opinion, there is no future. There is no positive future for coins, and they're hurting people outside of the coin world, right? It would be one thing if when you did coin shit, you only hurt people who are doing coin shit, right? But you're hurting everyone when you do coin shit. So fuck everyone who's in the coin world. Go to hell. Fuck them coins.
Yeah, well,
find another way to achieve your cyber utopian principles that actually fucking works.
Yep, because frankly, even if there were valid uses for this technology that made sense and actually solved a problem in the world, these proof-of-work algorithms and the electricity they're wasting makes that a non-starter.
Yep, and if you wanna set up a currency or whatever, Postgres is free, and it uses one computer, and with one computer you could have like so many users. It's unbelievable, right? Just do that.
All right, I think we're good.